So yes, as I was saying, I know that you both are quite busy all day, so we really appreciate that you took the time to to help us. Good. I'm gonna share a quick presentation. Share screen. Okay. Share. You should be. Are you seeing my screen now?
Yes.
All right. Good. Thank you. So yes, this was basically the slide that you have seen in the social media. Starting with Laura. Laura studied chemistry in the Complutense University of Madrid, to then move to Barcelona to do her master's in the Autonomous University of Barcelona. She carried out her PhD in the same university where she studied modern pure shift NMR methodologies, as well as improved HSQC and HSQ-MCV, if I'm correct, experiments. I'm sorry about that. Yes, so during her PhD, she also carried out a placement in France, in the University of Nantes, where she worked with ultra-fast NMR. Once she finished her PhD, she moved to Manchester, where she currently is, in the University of Manchester. She did 2 postdocs, and then since 2019, she's a research fellow, and she has built an internationally leading research group in the study of new heteronuclear NMR tools. Then I will introduce Sara, but just let me please say thank you to all of our working group. We are all volunteers. We just do it because we love science. Well, if any of you are interested in getting to know us and maybe collaborate with us, as you can see, we can use some help. Maybe someone with some knowledge on graphic design, that would be great. Anyway, there you have our our website and our email. So please drop us an email, and well, we are looking forward to meet you. That's pretty much everything. So I'm gonna hand over to Laura, who's gonna be first. Stop share. There you have.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, first of all, thank you very much for that invitation. I didn't expect it to get something like that. I was very flattered when I got it, and to be honest, I wasn't really sure what I should talk about today. I found myself, so I'm an early research career, just got this position recently, like 2 years ago. So I'm not really sure how much perspective I can give of the role of woman in science, but this is definitely my personal story, my personal perspective, and I've just tried to give you some idea of what it has been so far being a woman in science for me. So my title is Tales from an NMR Spectroscopist because this is what I am and what I do for research. So I do research on nuclear magnetic resonance. So I define myself kind of NMR spectroscopist. And definitely my experience in the research environment is very much linked to the NMR community itself. So, but today I'm not going to talk about what I do in research. I thought I could just talk about what has been this adventure, or let's say just adventure for me. So it's a bit of an overview of what I have done, challenges that I have encountered during my career, and lessons that I learned So this is a bit of a summary. You already introduced me, so I've been a bit all over the place. So we start from the beginning, from my early days. So I'm from Madrid, Spain, but my family is from Villanueva de la Vera in Cáceres, and I very much consider myself from there. It's a small village in a very nice area in the north of Extremadura, and it has been part of my life and shaped myself. So it was really important. It is really important for me as it is my family. I was thinking probably I wasn't aware during my life, but once I think about that, I think it was really important in my life, the role that my family play. So this is my family. Let's see if I can have the annotation here. So my father, my mother, my sister, and myself. So I thought we were like pretty normal family, but later on, when you look at it with perspective, it was a bit of unusual family by the time, well, at the beginning. So my mom has her own company on plumbers, and my father was a postman, retired right now, but the roles at home were a bit unusual. So my mom was used to work from 8 to 8. My father used to work on the mornings. So basically he was the one taking care of me and my sister during the day, doing all the housework. And for me it was completely normal. And I never thought it would be any different in any other family. But with time, you realize that not all families are the same. Roles within the family are different, and these roles definitely shape you. And for me, just sharing tasks and responsibilities were the most normal thing to do, and it wasn't anything assigned for being a man or a woman in that sense. So I thought that probably that was the beginning of getting a model of how to be. Then I was always driven by curiosity. So they always told me, I was always asking why not, what is that for? And my family encouraged me all the time to try to seek an answer to everything. So I think this driving force was the one that led me to a scientific career. And definitely something that I didn't see it at the time, but I can see it now. It was the role that two of my teachers in high school play. So they were my teachers from chemistry and physics. So there are these two ladies here, two women. They were very passionate about what they did, and they definitely transmitted to me. And I wasn't aware of that, but now looking back, it was definitely a key element for me to decide to go for scientific career and more specifically about chemistry. So one of the main challenges I faced when I finished high school, and I think it's common for most of us, because until there is just all kind of normal. You go to school, high school, that's it. And then it's the main challenge is, what do I do? Do I go to university? If so, what do I want to do? And it was, for me, it was clear. I loved chemistry. And when I told to my family, they were like, university, chemistry, what are you going to do with that? They do not have any university background. But I was trying to explain, and they were like, okay, it looks like you have a future there. So the lesson learned was do what you love. No matter if it sounds weird or unusual for the people that is around you, if you like something, just try it and do it. So that's what I did. And then I decided to study chemistry. And then I went to do a chemistry degree in Madrid, in the Complutense University of Madrid. I did chemistry. It was great fun. It took me a while to do my degree, because during the time I was doing my degree, I was also working as a waitress in my village on the weekends and holidays. So it took me more than what it's supposed to take. Like, and then when I was in the university, I think it was the first time I really started thinking about the roles of women, not only in university, but in workplaces in general. As a student, I didn't notice absolutely anything. Like, we were half-half, probably men and women in chemistry degree. We could see that engineering, chemistry that we shared a building with, like, they were definitely way more men than women. But I didn't really notice anything at my level. But what I noticed, it was the difference between students and any other level above it. Like, I think I had in all my undergraduate studies like 2 or 3 women professors, and most of them were men. Nothing bad about that. It's just a fact, and it was something that I just realized, like, there were only very few women at the professor level. I also noticed those roles were like very defined in the workplace. So I was working as a waitress, and it was definitely different, the roles that the woman workers we were playing and the men workers were playing. So I think, but it was that time when I started to realize, well, you know, there are roles that are assigned for gender that I wasn't sure. Now I know they do not need necessarily to be assigned to any gender, but this is part of the society, and we are used to that and live with that. Then, well, I studied chemistry. I was really passionate about chemical structures in any kind, solid state, liquid state. And then it's where I came along with nuclear magnetic resonance, NMR. And I have to say, it was a love at first sight. I loved the technique. I love the idea. I love the science behind all the challenges. So I decided to go to the NMR service of the university to see if I could do any project on NMR. They didn't have any, but they told me, you can come here and learn as much as you want. So I did that during my last year. And while I was doing that, it was the opportunity to do a PhD on NMR in Barcelona. So at the time, I was with my partner right at the beginning of our relationship, but it was something I didn't want to do without him at the time. And he was really, really happy to say, I'm going with you. Let's gonna go together in this adventure. So the main challenge I think I faced at that time was leaving my comfort zone and say, okay, I decided I want to go somewhere else, far from home, friends, family. But the lesson I learned is there is no problem of leaving the comfort zone. It's fun, it's challenging, it's interesting, but it really, really, really makes a difference when you have your family and friends support. And I had all of that. My family was really sad because I was leaving, but they were very supportive. My friends were supportive in the way that we will go and visit you as many times as you allowed us. And definitely my partner was the main support and the person that made the big difference for me to take this step forward. Then I started my master degree and my PhD in chemistry at the Autonomous University of Barcelona in the NMR group that we can see the people here. Sorry, this is the NMR group. And then I was doing the PhD in nuclear magnetic resonance. So there is all that I'm going to have about science here. So I'm basically working since then in the development of new NMR methods. So I design new experiments to get information that is not achievable using current methods. So basically design these fancy kind of schematic representations here of radio frequency pulses and timings to get NMR spectra that give us molecular information. During my PhD, well, in fact, right at the beginning of my PhD, my supervisor challenged me about what to do during my PhD, and I had no idea because I didn't know much about the topic. And he suggests me, why don't you go somewhere else and try to see what other people is doing with NMR, not only what we do. So I started my PhD in September, and in October or November, I went to France to do a visit and research statement there for 3 months, and it was an amazing experience. At this time, I make myself aware of the importance of mentors and colleagues within the research groups. Although NMR, methodology NMR is a very specific field, and there is few women working on that, I never felt alone, and I was very supported by absolutely every one of my supervisors and colleagues. Not all were good times. So I think that during my PhD was the first time I really struggled with the unexpected challenges that I was facing, just by the fact that I was a woman. And they may seem very simple and not very important, but by the time for me were a huge thing. So just to give you an idea about what I'm talking about, first challenge I faced was first time I went to an NMR conference. I was presenting my poster, so I didn't think about anything else more than going there, learn a lot about NMR, talk about what I was doing that I was like really, really excited about, and enjoy that time. But when I was doing that during my poster presentation, I got a very uncomfortable feeling of having the impression that some of the people that were coming to talk to me to my poster were not much interested in the science that I was doing about. They were just wanted to chat with me. And I know this is not probably something that we normally talk about, but after years talking with other colleagues during conferences, and so it looks like it's something that many of us faced, and probably we do not talk about it as much as we need to. And it's important that we talk about it not only with our female colleagues, but especially with the male colleagues. And every time I do that, I was doing that, they were very surprised to see that, because they never experienced it, and they never really pay attention on that. So I think it's important that when we face these kind of situations that may be uncomfortable, we make colleagues aware of that. And I came back from that conference very upset, and really thinking next time I'm going to a conference, I would think twice how I dressed. Do I smile too much? Not too much? I'm not going or approaching people in the correct direction, which I thought it was something I shouldn't be doing. So I was talking a lot with my supervisor about that, and he gave me a lot of good advice, and he supported me massively. And with the time, things changed. But for me, it was a big shock, because I didn't expect that. I realized when I was there that I was only one of the few women in the conference, or at least in this area of the conference. But I didn't expect to face that. One Other issue I'd had in another conference, also during my PhD, was at the end of my PhD, I got a prize for my PhD. So I got invited to give a talk in one of the big American conferences. So I was there, I enjoyed the conference. I did a lot of network. And when I finished, I did my talk. And when I finished my talk, I have a couple of colleagues, well, from the community, approaching me and telling me, I'm glad to see that you are not only a nice face. You know, sometimes this kind of comments, I don't think people do them to hurt or to put you down or to value you down in any sense, but it definitely does, because it implied that they were not expecting from me, I don't know why, to be able to have a research that it can be interesting, that it can be challenging, and that I would be able to give a talk that they could find interested. I don't know why is that, but I have experienced that. And I think it's, again, something we need to try to correct in future. And it's something that we only can do as a community. And we only can change it if we talk about that. So sorry to not talk about the beauty of that, but I think this is part of the story. And the main challenge for me at that time was realizing that I was part of a minority. And there is nothing wrong on that. And the more important is you are not alone, because I got full support of my colleagues, supervisors, and everyone else in the community. It's also a minority, which makes you to feel a bit uncomfortable. But definitely, I wasn't alone. I'm not alone. And I think it's really important to know. Then I moved to do my postdoc to Manchester, rainy Manchester. So this picture is really sunny, but there are only few days where we see much of sun here. And I started working here in the NMR methodology group to develop in the development and application of new NMR methods. And that was a great experience in every sense. It was really challenging as well. The language barrier, the cultural barrier, moving, again, thanks to the support of my partner, we moved together, which made everything much more easier. And it was the time when I started to realize about what research internationalization means and the benefits of that, having collaborations, going to conferences, start to be invited to give talks in conferences, being part of associated journal boards and things like that. So for me, that was an incredible time in terms of career development. It was a time where I started to do more outreach activities. Is when I started to be a member of SRUK Northwest, here based in Manchester, and work also in outreach activities at the chemistry department. And I enjoy it a lot. But one of the things that I noticed, at least here, is, in my experience, is that the representation of women doing outreach activities is huge, is massive. Like, I'm not sure why, but there is a majority of women really leading on those or participating on those activities. So I'm not sure what is the reason. Probably those are kind of questions open for debate or discussion later on, but at least that's my experience from that perspective. The downside during that time is I had the feeling, probably self-imposed, that I have to prove myself to others. And I have to prove that I knew a lot about NMR, that I was really working hard during my PhD, and I had the authorship of the things that I was doing. not sure where this came from, probably self-imposed, but I struggled with that. And with the time I learned that the most important thing is you need to prove yourself just to yourself, not to others. So don't let yourself or anyone else trying to make you otherwise. And definitely in this stage, during my PhD, the role of my supervisor was key, but in this stage was crucial. They were giving me the space to be independent. They were giving me the tools to learn how to teach others and supervise others. And they also encouraged me to move forward, which for me at the time, I was only 2.5 years of postdoc. And when they encouraged me to apply for a fellowship, I was like, that's not my time. It's too early. I'm not prepared. That's too big for me. But they definitely encouraged me and make me realize I could try. And I definitely did, and success. But it was key, their support and their mentorship. So I'm really, really grateful to them. So they were Gareth Morris, Matthias Nilsson, and Ralph Aran. And I think that mentors are key at any stage of the research career. The earliest we can get them, the better. But if you do not have mentors at this stage of your research career, I will definitely encourage you to look for those. It can be someone from your research area, it can be someone within your network, but definitely it's really important, I think, to seek for advice and listen to those people. So I think that the main challenge I had in this stage of my career, it was imposter syndrome. I think it was the first time I really had the feeling that I have to prove myself to others and that I felt really small somehow. I'm not sure why. But the lesson I learned, and I'm still learning, is do your best being yourself. You may not be perfect, you may not be what everyone is expecting, but do your best being yourself, and at least in that way you will have, I at least have a bit of peace of mind. Then it came the last stage of my career is when I got my fellowship in 2019. So I got this Dame Kathleen Orenso Fellowship at the University of Manchester to get full academic independence. But I work within a collaborative group. So I joined my previous supervisors, Gareth, Matthias, and Ralph, in a joint group. So we are the Monk NMR group. And here's a picture, an old picture of us previous COVID. And this is not very common in many areas to have several PIs working together, collaborative. But for me, working in that way has been great. It's very vibrant and collaborative atmosphere, and you definitely get support and criticism in a good way internally, which I found in this stage very, very important. And more on those times, COVID times and so, where things were definitely not easy. At this stage, I think one of the main things I kind of notice, or I kind of have to justify all the time, or I find myself talking about, is about, well, this discussion about did you get something because it was a positive action or a positive discrimination? And it started from the beginning of my fellowship, because this fellowship is it's not focused, but it tried to give an opportunity to underrepresented groups in science. And women, we are one of those. So this call is open for everyone, but they were like strongly advising minority groups to apply for it because they want to increase the visibility and the opportunities for those minority groups. And I was quite surprised to see that we as women were part of what it was considered a minority group. So I've been kind of dealing with this thing about, do you get invited to give a talk in a conference because they need woman representation and they have very few? It's because of what you do, the research you do, and the importance of that. So I don't know, probably another open question if we want to have a debate later on. But I think I feel sometimes we have a bit of that. And definitely, I would say it's a positive action and not a positive discrimination from my perspective. If you were not very aware of the differentiation between these two, positive discrimination means that you give something to someone, even if it's not the best for doing that. The positive action means that at equal level of knowledge, you give it to the one that is less represented. So I definitely think and want to believe that we are more in the world of positive actions and not positive discriminations. It was the first time, actually, I realized I was starting to be a role model. And I was so surprised. It was in a conference. I gave a talk. And when I finished the talk, someone came to me and told me, oh, that was great. Thank you very much for giving a talk. It's very difficult to see a woman giving a talk in that area. It really inspired me. I was shocked and frightened, to be honest, because being a role model are big words. And I'm not sure. I don't think nobody is really prepared to be a role model, or you are really aware that you are a role model. But after that, I start thinking from time to time, we all are at different stages. And we need to keep that in mind in every aspect of life. And as part of being a role model, I was, so here there is a little picture from the last 11th of February, where we celebrate the role of the woman in science, woman and child in science. So I'm here with two of my PhD students that are a woman. And so right now I'm supervising and co-supervising 3 PhD students, 2 of them are women, and 1 postdoc that is a man. But I was so surprised when I was opening the call for PhD students. I mainly got women applications. And I've been in the panels for open positions for my colleagues within the group, and they barely get any women application. And I'm not sure if this is a coincidence, but the fact that the 2 times that I opened a position, I had more women applying to it than I've never seen within my little research area, it made me think, is the fact that I'm a woman opening the possibility to women to think about to apply to it? I don't know, but this is part probably of the discussion of being a role model for women in science. And then it was the huge earthquake of my life, and it was maternity. So I'm been recently mom. So I'm mom of the little Julia. She is now 1 year old. So I've been juggling starting my research group, COVID, and maternity all together. And it's definitely very, 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 very challenging. Academic life is great for maternity because we have a lot of flexibility, but we are also very self-demanding, and that's very, very difficult because in my case, I want to perform at 100% as I was doing before, and I'm limited about what I can do because right now my life has changed. I'm very tired. I have other responsibilities. I cannot work until wherever the time I need to because I have a little one to take care of and look after. So it's been definitely very, very challenging. I am very, very lucky that I have a very supportive group. So my colleagues, Gareth, Matthias, and Ralph, they've been supporting me during my maternity leave massively, taking care of PhD students. So it was a really massive help for pressure on myself. And it may sound an stereotype, but since then, I've been kind of tried to have to justify myself every time that someone asked me, did you took the whole maternity leave? Because here in UK, we have 1 year of maternity leave by right, by being a woman. And I had to say no. So I just took 6 months of maternity leave. And I had to justify myself why I did that, why I didn't spend my whole year with my baby. And I thought this is completely unfair. And it's even more surprising when I say people, no, but I just took 6 months because I shared the other 6 with my partner. So we could share the responsibility of raising a baby on our own in a country where we do not have family or friend support. And people still get shocked that we do share those responsibilities and we do want to come back to work somehow and take back our previous life. It's definitely very challenging. I'm still enjoying and struggling with that, but it's definitely an amazing adventure, and I'm really glad that I'm surrounded by colleagues that help me at every stage. So the main challenge for me in the current stage is work-life balance in every sense, and the main lesson is you cannot perform at 100% of every single aspect of your life, like being a mom, taking care of the house, taking care of the research group, taking care of yourself. But somehow you find time to do absolutely everything except taking time for yourself. And I think this is really important, that we make time for ourselves, because it will allow us to perform at 100% in every other aspect. So that's all from me, and the challenges and lessons that I've been learning through my career. And probably if I had to summarize the things that I have learned, I would say, do what you are passionate about, and have your family and friends close by. Their support is crucial. Do not let any barriers to get on your way. Just try to find solutions to go around them. Enjoy every experience at every stage as much as possible. Not everything is nice and amazing, and there are hard times, but they will pass. So we just need to go through them and enjoy when we are not there. Seek for advice from people that you respect. Embrace every opportunity and challenge, and above all, be yourself in any aspect, scientifically, personally, and every single aspect. So that's all from me. That's just a little picture of me and my little one last year. That is in Spanish, but I would like to translate what I wanted to say. Is like, I hope we have a future where we have very little to fight for and very much to celebrate in terms of women and rights. So that's all for me. Thank you.
Amazing talks, Laura.
Yeah, it's really amazing. I'm shocked by some stuff that you say, some experience that you had in the past. I don't even know what to say because I'm a man. So I don't know. I just apologize for my colleagues, I guess.
I don't think there is. I don't think nobody should apologize. I just got the impression that sometimes we do not talk about uncomfortable situations, and
No,
then if we do not talk about them, people is not aware of them.
You're absolutely right.
So there is nothing wrong. We face them every single part of our life, and I think I already emphasized that like 99% of all my colleagues, men or women around, they were very supportive in every aspect. But we have some minorities that made you feel a bit uncomfortable sometimes.
Okay, we have so many questions and comments in the chat, but I think that maybe we can move on to Sara's talk, and then we have a discussion together, so you both can can comment your views on the matter, if that's correct. So
okay, so I have to share my screen, right?
I have a slide to introduce you.
Okay, sorry.
Is that correct? Otherwise, we can move on to you already.
No, go ahead with the introduction.
Okay, nice. Good. So there you have again. Let me show. Okay, so for those of you who joined late, I just want you to have a look at this picture because it's so funny. Anyway, I just wanted to say that if you're interested in what we do as a society, just drop us an email. But yeah, there you have the website and also the email. But moving on to Dr. Sara Priego Moreno. Sara studied her undergraduate degree in biotechnology in the Pablo Olavide University in Seville, in South Spain. In her
Miguel,
last year...
We are not seeing your screen.
Oh, you're not?
No.
Sorry about that. Oh, are you seeing it now?
Yes.
Okay. Give me a second. Good. So yeah, this is the funny slide I wanted to share with you. And there you have the website and the email address. And yes, so Sara studied her undergraduate degree in biotechnology in the Pablo Olavide University in Seville. In her last year, she went on an Erasmus to the Department of Biochemistry and Molecular Biology of the University of Birmingham in the UK. Once she finished her BSc, she carried out a PhD and then a postdoc in the same university in Birmingham, where she was studying please correct me if I'm saying something wrong here. She was studying the mechanism of replisome disassembly during DNA replication termination.
That was amazing. Yeah.
Okay.
Very well pronounced.
Okay. I did try a few times before the meeting. So anyway, yes. So she was studying that as well as the response to replication stress. Okay, thank you. Yes. Good. I really don't know much of what I just said, but it does look so interesting. So after that, she moved to a way better weather all the way to California in the US as a research associate in Salk Institute for Biological Studies. She's a member of SRUK-CERU lab, and she studies the replication mechanism required for telomere maintenance in human cells. So, well, that was all from me, and well, we are all looking forward to hearing from you, Sara.
No, don't want to do a spoiler.
Yes.
Okay, now
perfect.
you can. Awesome. Okay, well, I first want to start thanking Laura for her great presentation. I think she's really brave because she spoke about the ugly or the tough things. And I must say that throughout my presentation, I was thinking about adding or not these parts. And in the end, I thought, I don't know if I add them, I might feel a bit nervous, you know, and maybe I should skip it and just talk about the good times. But she encouraged me, and I think I'm gonna share some of these not so good experiences. What else I wanted to say? Yeah, I think that's it. So yeah, congratulations, Laura, for your great talk. Also, you made me cry a few times. And at the beginning I hide, but then I just let people see whenever I got emotional. I hope I can keep it together during my presentation. Okay, well, so today, So today I'm gonna tell you about how I paved my path in science along with my family, mentors, and friends. And I'm gonna do a little presentation as well in Spanish because I have my family and friends watching me that they don't, some of them don't speak English, and I want them to hear this message. Bueno, familia, os voy a contar un poquito de mi historia, de cómo ha sido mi camino desde Cádiz hasta San Diego en la ciencia. Y esta charla se la dedico a mi familia, a mis amigos, a los amantes de la ciencia y sobre todo a las mujeres, en especial a las mujeres científicas. Okay, with this, I'm gonna start my talk. And I think it's fair that I start from the beginning. So I come from Cádiz, which is the region which is more at the south of Spain. Here you can see a picture of our Atlantic Ocean. And this was the atmosphere of the house where I grew up. I had a bunch of roommates. I lived with my siblings, my little sister, Angela, and my two brothers, Juanma and Antonio, and my parents. I will introduce them to you later, and also my grandmother. So somehow, you know, we managed to coexist and get along for many years, and these years were really, really fun. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about my parents. So this is my dad, Antonio Priego Fernandez. He he studied chemistry at the University of Cádiz, and he became a cool and loving high school teacher, as you can see. The main value that he transmitted to me was education. My mother, instead, she didn't finish high school, and she used to work in a tobacco factory. What I remember about my mother as a kid is that she was always working. If she wasn't working at her workplace, she was working at home, and she was a highly committed mother and daughter. And definitely the value that she transmitted to me was the value of hard work. My interest in science began in high school, along with my dad and brothers. Somehow, in the middle of the chaos that you would find in my house, I'm sure some of my cousins are watching me, and they could give you many talks about all the troubles that we used to make at home. But somehow, in the middle of this chaos, my two older brothers and me, we became interested in science. Magic happened. Or well, maybe we should give some credit to my dad's chemistry lectures. My two brothers, well, I wanted to say, we enjoyed science in general, but definitely the star subject in the house was mathematics. My two brothers became very enthusiastic mathematicians, the kind of mathematicians that like to collect textbooks, and they're very proud of them. It's such a shame that I don't have this picture. I asked my brother Juanma if he could find it, but he couldn't. He actually used to study in his blackboard that he had at home. He loved blackboards, and his friends got him a blackboard for his birthday. And I grew up, you know, seeing this kind of excitement about science and about transmitting science. It was really good. So they became mathematicians. You can see the quality of their, you know, notes. I love this one especially. And my favorite subject, of course, was also mathematics. Here, my sister managed to rescue last week one of my old math notes. And I just really loved the aspect of mathematics that are exact, clean, and neat. So it was time to choose a degree after I finished high school. And of course, my first idea, influenced by my brothers, was to continue learning about my favorite subject, which was mathematics. However, if I chose this degree, I would stay in my hometown because it was offered by the University of Cádiz. But you know, before I had to take this decision, I also like the other subjects like chemistry, physics, and biology. And before I had to take the decision, one of my science teachers. He told me, Sara, well, he knew my brothers because we all went to the same school. And he told me, Sara, you know, I know you like mathematics, you are influenced by your brothers as well, but I know you as a student, and I think you might enjoy studying a new degree, because by the time this degree had been like 3 years, I think, or 2 or 3 years, this degree was biotechnology. And he said that he knew other students, you know, from the past, that had a very similar pattern to the one that I had as a student. They studied biotechnology and they were really enjoying it. So he said, Sara, check this out, you know? And I actually took his advice. I checked it out, and it turned out that I really like all the subjects that, that involve this degree. And then on top of that, if I chose biotechnology, I would be able to go to Seville and leave my hometown, because by the time, biotechnology wasn't a degree that was offered by the University of Cádiz. Now it is. So then, you know, I would get to go out of my comfort zone, as Laura was telling us before, and go on to my first of many adventures. So here, there is something that I'm going to say is a very sensitive topic, and I thought so much about sharing it or not, but now Laura encouraged me, and I'm gonna do this. So the same science teacher who influenced me to start my scientific career and had an amazing positive impact on me, he was the director of my high school. I'm not gonna say his name because I don't want to get into so much detail. But this man ended up in jail for sexual assault to other women students, to other girl students. So when I heard this news, I was just very, very, very disappointed, very angry, and very, very sad, because, you know, I couldn't believe that at the same time that he had such a positive impact on me, he ended up probably ruining the life of other girls, you know. And from here, I want to show my support to all the girls and women that are victims of sexual harassment. And please, please, move forward always. Don't let these things to ruin your life. I hope I use the right words here, but I really thought about sharing this or not. Okay. So, okay, I decided to continue and go ahead with my biotechnology degree in Seville. So I moved to Seville, to the University Pablo de Olavide, and I want to make a point here. So the students that got into this degree, biotechnology, needed to have a cutoff mark, needed to have a mark at the end of high school of 8.5 out of 10. This means that the best students of each class in high school were in this class. And I had the amazing opportunity of sharing 5 years with highly motivated students, who, by the way, most of them were girls. So as you can see, we had a lot of fun revising for exams, also in our early lab practices. And we even did some very nerd and geeky stuff like making fluorescent worms. And we also had fun. And now I think it's time that I introduce you to my grandfather, because it's connected to my next experience. So here is my granddad. His name was Eusebio Priego Cubero. And this is my siblings and me, a regular day that he would come visit us. My grandfather grew up in the middle of very challenging times in Spain, and therefore he didn't have possibilities for higher education. Still, he was very well read and knowledgeable, and he was an immigrant for many years in Morocco. I'm going to share with you something from my grandfather that my family is very proud of. My grandfather's favorite Proverbs book. My grandfather was such a wise person. She was very, very wise. And he used this notebook where he would write down all the Proverbs that he learned throughout his life. And, you know, they help him to, I don't know, I guess to understand life better and to go through the challenges that he went through. And you know, he didn't just write few pages of this notebook. He finished the notebook until the last page. And a proof of that, I can show you here. He wrote 570 proverbs. I don't know if he has more notebooks that we don't know about. But I just wanted to share the last one that he wrote, where he said in Spanish, libros, caminos y vías dan sabiduría. I found out that this was actually an Arabic proverb that he probably learned throughout his years as an immigrant in Morocco. And in English, it's something like books, paths, and days build wisdom. He definitely knew what life was about. So my granddad passed away in 2010, surrounded by all his family. And, you know, he didn't get to save much money during his life, but he still had some savings that he passed on to his kids. And, well, kids, adults, kids. And my dad decided to share part of his, you know, his part of my granddad's savings with my siblings and me. So I thought a lot about how I would invest this money, you know, from my grandfather. And I decided that I would invest this money in my first working experience abroad in London. You know, I didn't get much money. It was 1,000 euros, but it was enough to buy a cheap Ryanair ticket to London and to rent a shitty room for a month in the Stepney Green neighborhood. What did I want to say here? I forgot. Oh yes, I know. So the reason why I did this is because English, I was a very good student, but definitely I was a really bad student in English. I could read and write because, you know, I had to learn that in high school and from reading scientific publications, but I was useless at talking or listening. Same the rest of my siblings. My sister now is a bit better. I don't know about my brothers, but I'm not sure. So anyway, I knew that the only way I would manage to improve my English skills was through pain, by going you know, on out of my comfort zone and putting myself there. So, you know, I was lucky to count with the support of my sister, Angela. She's my unconditional cheerleader. She's always there. Every country I've been, she's always supporting me. And I don't know what I would do without her. I also, you know, I was also lucky to count with the support of my cousin Manolo, who by the time lived in London. And I really thank him for all his support. And here's the proof that I was working actually in this restaurant. So with my English level, the only position that I could find was in the kitchen of a restaurant. Those who live in the UK, I'm sure that have seen or been to an Nando's restaurant. So that's where I used to work. But you know, I spent 4 months there. So I think I forgot to mention that I did it in the summer of my 4th year of my undergrad. Because, you know, I decided to go there for the summer and spend a few months at the beginning of my 5th year at uni, because I decided to just skip the classes that happened at the beginning so that I could have a long summer in the UK. So here is my friend, Clara from uni, who came to visit me. She's also one of my unconditional supporters. And we took this picture here. So 4 months, you know, after experiencing working in London, my English skills developed. And, you know, eventually I was able to even take some orders from clients and even bring them, you know, be a runner, like taking the food to the tables. And, you know, so I improved a lot, my English skills. And I even got enough skills to make my first international friend, Saskia, and I'm not gonna even try to pronounce her surname. But she was definitely a very important support for me. And if she see me, I sent her a big kiss and a hug. I haven't seen her in a long time. I hope that we can see each other soon. So I went back to Seville to finish my my degree, and here we graduated in 2012. So my next step, I decided that it would be to look for a lab in the UK to start my scientific career. Yeah, so I felt confident already with my English skills to go and take this step. And here, wait. And here is where I met Aga Gambus. So I started looking, I started sending emails to a lot of labs because I was looking for my mentor. Well, I don't know if mentor is the right word, supervisor. So I sent a bunch of emails and I didn't receive many answers. But one of the answers was from Aga Gambus. And you know, at the time we didn't used to do Zoom meetings or Skype. So I never saw Aga in person. We just exchanged emails. But from her emails, I could quickly realize that she was enthusiastic, very enthusiastic. She was empathetic, and she was a great mentor. And that was everything I needed, you know, to choose her. But on top of that, she was so cool. She used eggs from the frog Xenopus levis to study DNA replication. And I thought that that was just too cool. And therefore, it was the perfect package. And I'm so happy I chose her as my first mentor. Well, I think my dad was also a mentor and other people before, but my first official supervisor, scientific supervisor. So just like that, I joined the Gambus Lab. I joined first as an Erasmus student, and later on I continue as a PhD student and also as a postdoc, as Miguel, right? Miguel was introducing at the beginning. So this is the first picture that Aga and me took in the lab. And I want to make a point here. So not only I learned a lot of science from her, but I was very lucky to be there. So Aga started her lab right at the time that I joined her. And I was so lucky because I had the unique opportunity of seeing how she managed to build her lab at the same time that she raised her family. That was very inspiring and encouraging. And I will never forget that. We even, I even remember, so she gave birth to her daughter, Isabella. I think it was in 2015. And by that time, the other member of the lab, Rachel Bailey, she was also on maternity leave. They got pregnant at the same time. And, you know, I had to spend in the lab 4 months on my own, or 6 months. Yeah, 6 months, right? It was the maternity leave. But, you know, during this time, although Aga was at home taking care of her baby, she never left my side. And, you know, anytime I would struggle with experiments or, you know, needed ideas, or I could always reach her via email, phone, and I even went to her house many times to discuss science. And very often she would be breastfeeding, you know. Don't worry, Aga, I'm not gonna put a picture of you breastfeeding. But, you know, these memories really impacted me, and I wanted to share them with all of you. Not only she is a great supervisor, but also a great mother. And now I think it's time to tell you a little bit of the science, you know, that we did in the Gambus Lab, because this was really, really cool. So I think I'm gonna start with very simple introduction for those who are not so familiar with biology. So I think, although you might not be familiar with biology, you might have an idea that we as organisms are made up of individual units called cells. And our cells contain something that is called the genetic material, which is basically like a instructions manual for the cell that tells the cell how to work, and also in a big picture, it tells the organism how to look like and how to work. So, you know, different people have different color of hair because they have different instructions in their DNA. So the DNA, it's very long, it's formed by very long, so the genetic material is formed by very long DNA molecules. And this DNA is kept in like a pocket of the cell that we scientists call the nucleus. So the DNA of our cells is packed into this chromosomes, and the basic component of the chromosomes is the DNA. DNA is formed by 2 strands of a type of molecule which is called nucleic acid molecules. And these 2 strands are connected together, adopting the very famous structure of DNA double helix that I'm sure you are all, you've seen this in TV, in movies, everyone must be familiar with this structure here. And, you know, as you can imagine, as we grow old, the cells of our body need to divide. And every time a cell divides, it has to copy the genetic material in order to give a single, an exact copy to each daughter cell. So this process is a very challenging process for the cell because it happens actually in a very short window of time, maybe for human cells, that the cell that we use in the lab, in like 8 hours, 12 hours is enough for the cell to achieve the whole cell division. And you know, the challenge of DNA replication is the fact that so much DNA that is inside the nucleus has to be copied in a very exact and precise way in a very short window of time. This is, I mean, I don't know if I'm using the right words, but this is an extremely difficult task that our cells have to do every time goes through cell division. And you know, the cell achieved this successfully most of the time, which is very, very impressive. So I'm gonna give you a bit more details of how DNA replication or DNA synthesis happen in our chromosomes. So in order to be able to achieve DNA replication of the entire chromosomes, the way our cells evolve to achieve this is by initiating DNA replication from different points, from thousands of points in our chromosomes, which are called origins of replication. So you know, at each of these origins, the DNA helix is opened, and DNA synthesis starts from these origins. And eventually, 2 exact copies of the chromosomes are made, and each of these, we call them sister chromatids, gets pulled off to different cells, to the different daughter cells. And here I'm gonna, you know, get even into a bit more detail of this process. So if this is a chromosome, okay, or a part of the chromosome, and we have 2 origins of replication here, the first step that takes place during DNA replication is the recognition of these origin DNA sequences by a bunch of proteins that I'm not gonna go into detail here, by a bunch of proteins that conform a machinery called replisome, okay? So these machineries recognize and bind to the DNA, and they later on unwind the DNA double helix and open the helix. And this is followed by, you know, once they unwind the DNA, they use the force that they have to move away from each other and unzip, like unwind the DNA as if it was a zip, you know? We call them replication forks because it also have the shape of a fork. So, you know, as they do this, as they progress through the DNA, unwinding it, DNA synthesis happens. It's done by other proteins that are also part of the replisome. And eventually, you know, 2 replisomes from neighboring origins, from origins that were next to each other, meet, DNA synthesis is completed, and these replisomes are removed from the DNA. And the focus of the Gambus lab for 6 years, since I arrived to her lab, she was already generating the first results, but the focus of the Gambus lab was to see how, you know, how the last stages of this process occurred. Especially, she was interested in understanding how these replisomes were removed from the DNA. And, you know, we spent 6 years working in detail to this very specific aspect of DNA replication. And not just Aga and me. I mean, I was lucky to be there throughout the entire process, but, you know, we also count with the help of other members of the lab who came, at different times while we were building this story. And I'm not gonna show you any of the deep, the real science, like the results, but I'm just gonna summarize and tell you our findings. So, we did a lot of work, and we actually managed to identify all the proteins and the mechanism by which, all the proteins that were involved in taking these replisomes away from the DNA. And here are just the name of some of these proteins. So, what we found is that when DNA synthesis is completed, the ubiquitin, this blue protein here, which is a ubiquitin ligase called Kalin2LRR1, recognize the replisome and attach these purple molecules that are called ubiquitin. So it like puts these molecules on the replisome, and then these modified replisomes are recognized by this other protein here, P97, which is able to generate changes in the conformation of these replisomes and remove them from the DNA. So these findings were incredible, but they were not just findings. They were actually part of a scientific discovery, because at the same time that we were having these findings, another lab in Dundee, in the University of Dundee, directed by the brilliant scientist Karim Labib, Dr. Karim Labib, was also reaching the same conclusions, same findings and same conclusions in other model organisms, starting first in the budding yeast Saccharomyces cerevisiae, and later on in the worm C. elegans. So all together, we became collaborators, and we worked together, and we made a scientific discovery. And as you can see, we published these findings in very high impact journals. So yeah, this was amazing. And here I just want to tell you a little bit of, because I showed you a bunch of models, mechanisms, proteins, and you might think, when I tell people that I am part of cancer research, and they ask me, okay, what cancer do you work on? I'm like, no, I don't really work on any cancer, or I just do basic science. And it's so difficult to make people understand that basic science is, the start for treating a disease, really. So I'm just going to put you here an example of DNA replication, okay? But this applies to any science behind any disease. So in DNA replication, the example is that, as I told you before, DNA replication normally takes place in an accurate and successful way in cells. So when cells replicate their DNA in the right way, the cells are normal, and eventually they get old and stop dividing. However, when cells don't replicate their DNA correctly, when the different steps during DNA replication go wrong, the DNA of these cells get damaged. The DNA gets sick, and when the DNA gets sick, the cells become a bit crazy, and they can generate cancer. So this is why the study of DNA replication is very important. So I try to put here, summarize in 4 boxes what I just explained you. So as I said, when DNA replication is not executed properly, DNA is damaged. Damaged DNA can lead to cancer. And what we need to understand is that only if we understand the basis of DNA replication in healthy cells, we can identify the events that fail and cause cancer development. And this applies to any disease. In order to treat any disease, we first need to understand the basis of its development. That's the start for any, for treating any disease. So just wanted to, make a point here so that we all understand the importance of basic science. Okay, and now I'm done talking about science, or at least about, deep science. And I'm going to tell you now a story which has to do with SRUK-CERU, with SRUK, with the Society of Spanish Researchers in the UK. And I think in order to do that, I first have to introduce you to my friends back then. These were my friends. We were a terrific group of friends simply because we liked the same things. We liked barbecues in the garden of our house. We liked the German Christmas markets. We went there every year and we had great fun there. We loved hanging out in British pubs, these old pubs, that when you enter, they smell like wet old carpets. We had great times in the pubs. And we also loved science. So we had all these things in common. And now I want to draw your attention to these two individuals here. I mean, I laugh when I see them, every time I see them, because they were such a funny couple. So I want to introduce you to my friends, Dr. Ignacio Insua and Dr. Xavi Javier Monzó, Nacho and Xavi for the friends. So they were two very enthusiastic chemists, and they were the kind of couple that like to be involved in everything. So, one day they decided to go to an event that was organized by a Society of Spanish Researchers in the United Kingdom. So they both went there to see what was going on, and they learned a lot about the society. They learned that it was a society that promotes communication within the community of Spanish researchers working in the United Kingdom by creating a social network that facilitates the sharing of professional and life experiences. Awesome. The association has encouraged this communication via the establishment of constituencies throughout the UK and departments and committees supporting our activities. I took this from the website of SRUK. But what they found out is that the Midlands constituency, like in the Midlands territory, which is where Birmingham was in, there was no constituency, like there was no group, working group. And they were like, this is not possible. Like, we are here and we are a bunch of scientists, because also what I didn't mention at the beginning is that all the friends that were in my group, they were all very motivated PhD students from different disciplines, from mathematics, biology, and chemistry. And, it was a good opportunity for us to start something, So, very quickly they wrote on our WhatsApp group where we were all in, and they were like, guys, we have to discuss some business. We're gonna rent a room, book a room next week at the University of Birmingham. Let's all meet there and talk about something. And, we did that, and they suggested whether we wanted to start a working group and build the Midlands constituency of SRUK. And a few months later, here we were, that was the working group of SRUK Midlands. This was the first day that we presented ourselves. And this was the directive team of SRUK Midlands, the first one, with Nacho, Xavi, and Dr. Maria Cuenca, Doctora Maria Cuenca, who at the time was my roommate. And I'm just gonna share some of the experiences, that we had during the time that we were working with SRUK. So we organized a lot of events, but I'm just putting here a few of them. I want to remember this day that we went to the Botanical Gardens of Birmingham, where our good friend Felu, he's a biologist. I mean, well, I should have introduced first by his full name, which is José Luis Brioso, but we called him El Felu. He told us all the secrets he knew about the plants from the Botanical Gardens. And as you can see in the picture, he was so happy that day because he received so many compliments from all of us. Thank you, Felu. We learned a lot from your, from your knowledge. We sometimes even mixed two of our favorite things, which was science and pubs. And we did science in the pubs. So here is just an example of a presentation that I gave, in this pub, the Boston Tea Party, which we liked it too. And we did more science in the pubs that were done by other people of the group. And we even managed to meet, the first Spanish astronaut, Pedro Duque, in the 5th International Symposium of SRUK. We had such a good time. I mean, during my PhD, all these years were full of amazing science, not only in my lab, but all around me, all my friends were very knowledgeable, very enthusiastic, and it was inspiring everywhere. And yeah, I don't know, it was just the best time of my life. So I thank everyone who was with me during these years. I love you all, guys. So this brought me, to the end of my PhD. In 2017, I stopped working in the lab and started to write my thesis. These were some tough months, I must say. It was a mixture between excitement and pain because so many days writing, I was very tired some days. And there were tears, there were laughs, and but it was, I felt so happy and so satisfied. This is when I finally could print my thesis. And I think happiness and satisfaction can be reflected by my face here. This picture was taken by my good friend from the Gambus lab, Livia. I think she's watching the talk, so I sent her a great, a big kiss and a hug from here. I hope I will see you soon, Livia. Yeah. And then a month later, the committee, that examined me during my thesis defense had time already to read my thesis. And, I went through my thesis defense. So this is me right before giving my thesis defense presentation, or Viva, as they call it in the UK. And after that, I became a doctor. And here is where you can see that Aga's ideas and creativity go far beyond from science. She decided that as a present for for becoming a doctor, she got me a frog costume. And she decided to turn me into a frog after I became a doctor. And she also applied her creativity to the baking field. This is only an example of the cakes that she used to bake, but she is always surprising us with her cakes. And then finally, I graduated, and I was lucky that most of my close family, only my brother Juanma couldn't come because he was working, but I was lucky to have my brother Antonio, my sister Angela, and my parents, Angela and Antonio. Actually, yeah, they don't think too much about putting names to their kids. You know, if they can reuse the names, they do that. And yeah, we had a really, I also remember this day as one of my happiest days in my life. So I just wanted to share that with you. And I think this brings me almost to the end of my presentation. So after I finished my PhD and a short postdoc in the Gambus Lab, I decided to move all the way to San Diego, to California. Now I work in the lab of Dr. Jan Calceder, who is also a great scientist and a great mentor. And I've learned a lot of lessons from him. Here at the Salk Institute, I'm not going to enter into too much detail about what I've been working on, but I will just say that I continue to study DNA replication and repair, but instead of doing it in general throughout the chromosome, I focus on specific structures of our chromosomes called telomeres, which are very important structures that somehow protect our cells from becoming cancerous. Maybe in another occasion, I could tell you a bit more about this. And you know, now I'm not working with frogs anymore. The frogs stayed in Birmingham with Aga, and now I work with human cells. And I'm becoming an expert in cell biology. So yeah, I want to mention that, you know, as I will just mention this very briefly, but I want to mention that right, like Laura was saying in her talk, you know, I faced, I suffered a lot from this imposter syndrome that she was talking about. You know, after all my, you know, success, yeah, because I think I had a very successful PhD. I came here to this lab where I came into a new field. You know, I've never worked with cells, and I had to start doing, yeah, like, you know, I had to start learning a lot of things, and I felt that I knew nothing, and I felt a lot of insecurity, self-doubts. And very often I thought, what am I doing here, you know? And I even thought that, you know, all the success that I had during my PhD wasn't due to me, but to my supervisor, you know, or to the friends that I had then. But actually, you know, even though I went through these hard times of self-doubt, I always had friends and people who supported me and believed in me, and they gave me strength. And I never, even though I wanted to give up sometimes, I never did it. And now I feel that actually, you know, the success that I have are also due to me as well, you know. And right now I feel that I've learned a lot in this lab, and I consider myself an expert in telomeres and cancer, the role of telomeres in cancer, you know, and I'm ready to continue doing science and inspiring future scientists. So yeah, this last part, I didn't plan to include it, but I wanted to do it because, you know, as Laura pointed out in her talk, we also have to talk about the hard things, and I struggled with that a lot. So, okay, I want to finish, you know, the part of my time here in the Calceder lab by thanking Jan for several things. Okay, first of all, for giving me the opportunity to work in his lab. Secondly, for being extremely generous, caring, and he really did everything that he could during the COVID-19 pandemic to help us thrive during these difficult times. And I also want to thank him for being a real supporter of women in science. Thank you, Jan. And finally, I just wanted to mention that, you know, if you are, if you think that you could be interested in the topics that we studied in our lab, or, you know, anyone that could be interested, please don't hesitate in contacting Jan, because he's gonna be recruiting postdocs soon. So, yeah, and this is my last slide, where I thought that is only fair that I, you know, talk about the women friends that I have in science, who have inspired me extremely throughout my scientific career since I started, you know, my journey in my hometown. So, you know, my science friends, they come from all over the world, and they are from different disciplines. But despite coming from different backgrounds, they all share the same personal strengths. They all have wisdom, courage, and humanity in different forms. They possess creativity, curiosity, love of learning, open-mindedness, perspective, authenticity, bravery, persistence, self-discipline, kindness, love, and social intelligence. They are my heroes. And I wanted to stop telling you words. I decided to make a video where I included pictures of all my friends, because I really want you to know their names and their faces and what they do. I hope you enjoy this.
They're trying to shoot down angels. They're trying to pull their wings off so they can't fly. And oh, but she's so brave though, just like a tornado. She's taking us by storm. You can't stop the goal from going. You can't stop the world from knowing. The truth will set you free. You can't stop the goal from going. You can't stop the world from knowing. The truth will set you free. You can't stop. They're trying to take our voices. They're trying to make our choices. So we scream loud, loud, loud. I know you feel the lightning, and it's so exciting. So here we go. You can't stop the goal from going. You can't stop the world from knowing. The truth will set you free. You can't stop the goal from going. You can't stop the world from knowing. The truth will set you free. You can't stop the goal. 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 Oh, I know you feel the lightning. It's so exciting. So here we come. It's good enough for right now.
Okay, that's it. That's really the end of my talk. I don't know how much, but I kick
huge
my
dog,
shit
huge,
together.
and I'm gonna take over from the bottom of. I mean, we were like Marta, Miguel, and I were talking like on the background a little bit about how amazing these both talks have been. I have to admit, I don't know, my eyes were like, I was just crying. So I don't know how I'm gonna be. I'm gonna try to just skip it a little bit now for me because we have to keep going with it. So thank you both. Thanks, Laura. Thanks, Sara. It's been amazing. So massive thank you.